God's chosen ones. God is angry. Don't do it again, no matter the cost. This message is not a whisper, not a gentle breeze. It is thunder rolling from the heavens, a sacred cry echoing across realms seen and unseen. Something has gone wrong, deeply wrong. A cycle has been repeated that was never meant to be touched again. And now, the divine heart that once glowed with mercy pulses with sorrow and righteous anger. This is not the anger of vengeance. This is the pain of betrayal. This is not the fury of punishment. It is the cry of a creator whose warnings have been ignored too many times. To all of you watching this now, we urge you with sacred urgency. Stay with us until the end. What you will hear and feel in this message is not from the world. It is energy beyond the flesh, beyond the noise of daily life. It is truth, sharp and pure, calling your spirit back into alignment. If your heart is open, if your soul still remembers the fire it came from, then you must do one thing after watching. Write your warmest wish in the comments and write the number 77 next to it. Why? Because this is the chapter where wishes begin to move. This is the sacred ground where seeds are planted and the universe bends to the will of your purity. Wishes are not selfish. They are echoes of the soul's longing to return to wholeness. Write yours down and know that it shall not go unanswered. Now, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let's dive deeper. There are moments when silence is no longer holy. There are moments when silence becomes sin. God has watched too long, waited too long. Mercy has been stretched, twisted, even mocked. Time and time again, the chosen ones, those anointed with knowing, power, intuition, vision, were called to rise above the filth of this world. They were instructed, they were warned, and yet, time and time again, the same mistake was made. You knew better, and you still did it. This isn't about being perfect. This isn't about failing while trying. This is about knowingly walking back into darkness after being pulled into light. This is about returning to Egypt after being delivered. This is about desiring chains again after having tasted freedom. You felt the release. You were gifted the escape. And still, you circled back to what God destroyed for you. Why? Why would the healed return to the sickness? Why would the delivered walk back into the fire? Why would the chosen ones of all people spit on the miracle they were entrusted with? The answer lies not in your weakness, but in your refusal to believe the cost. You thought the fire wouldn't burn again. You thought the consequence wouldn't be the same. You believed the grace you received would come back again and again, endlessly. You confused mercy with permission. You mistook delay with indifference. But now, the delay is over. The silence has shattered. God is angry. And this is not a metaphor. This anger is not small. It is not human. It is a divine tremor, shaking the very foundations of time. Do not make the mistake of thinking divine anger looks like rage. It doesn't. It looks like doors closing. It sounds like silence when you cry for help. It feels like the weight of your own choices crushing down on your chest. God's anger is not violence. It is withdrawal. It is letting you taste the true fruit of your actions. And many of you are already feeling it. Your dreams have dried. Your prayers feel empty. Your energy is scattered. Nothing feels right. You are haunted by the feeling that something sacred is slipping through your fingers, but you cannot stop it. That is not depression. That is not coincidence. That is divine absence. That is what happens when the anointing is removed. That is what happens when grace steps back and watches what you do on your own. God warned you through people, through dreams, through whispers, through sudden stops. You knew. You were told not to return to that person. You were told not to touch that thing again. You were told not to trust that energy again. But you did. You thought it would be okay this time. You thought maybe the lines had changed. You thought maybe you had more time. You were wrong. This is your awakening. And it is not warm. It is not poetic. It is terrifying. But it is necessary. Because you are still alive. And that means there is still hope. You are chosen, yes. But chosen for what? For easy blessings. For repeat miracles? You were chosen to carry the light into places that still know darkness. You were chosen to walk away from what others run toward. You were chosen to be holy in a world that laughs at holiness. And every time you return to what God burned down for your sake, you spit on that calling. But here is the truth. There is still time to stop. There is still power in your no. The road may be long, but it is not over. The divine wrath you feel is not a full sentence. It is a wake-up call. It is the sound of God slamming the table saying, "Enough. Do not do it again, no matter the cost, no matter the loneliness, no matter the pull, no matter how sweet the lie looks now. The cost is too high. You've already paid in blood, tears, energy, time. Will you really pay again? Will you really walk back into chains and expect freedom? You are not here to be pitied. You are here to remember, to ignite, to change. Many of you are in relationships that were already judged and burned by the divine. And you returned. Many of you made secret vows to yourself and God, and you broke them. Many of you asked for signs, got them, and still rebelled. And now you feel dry, hollow, empty. You wonder where the presence went. It went where your obedience didn't. But again, this is not the end. The presence can return, but not until you cut off what he told you to. Not until you burn the bridge, not just walk away. Not until you stop explaining, stop bargaining, stop trying to make wrong, right with sweet words. It won't work. It never did. You are not being punished. You are being refined. You are being called back into alignment. But this time, the invitation comes with fire. There is a new level waiting for you, but it cannot carry the old version of you, the old choices, the old people, the old lies, the old justifications. Everything that was part of the disobedience must be left behind. If not, the next phase will crush you. It will not bless you. The weight will feel like torment, not reward. God has already spoken. The time for gentle whispers is gone. This is the hour of thunder. This is the hour of the final chance. What you do now matters more than what you've done. Do not mistake this anger for hatred. It is love in flames. Love that refuses to watch you waste your calling. Love that cannot allow the sacred to be spoiled again. Love that burns so that something holy can rise again. And you will rise again if you stop, if you turn around, if you decide, truly decide, that you are done returning to what was never meant for you. The door back is closing, and when it shuts, it will never open again. If you go now, you go alone, without God, without grace, without light. So do not go, do not return, no matter the cost. There are moments when the silence after disobedience becomes louder than any scream. You sit in the aftermath of your own decisions, and everything around you is still, but heavy. Nothing moves, nothing breathes. That is not peace, that is absence. That is what it feels like when the divine presence leaves a room or a soul, because the command was ignored. And many of you are in that room now. You know it, you feel it. The color is gone from your life. The songs no longer stir your spirit. The scriptures seem hollow. The voices you once trusted now sound distant. You scroll, hoping something will awaken you again, but nothing hits. And you blame the world. You blame the people. You even blame God. But the truth is this: the presence didn't leave you. You left it. Every time you said just this once, you chipped away at the light. Every time you allowed what you knew was wrong to take root in your mind, your bed, your mouth, your life, the flame dimmed. Not because God is petty, but because the sacred cannot dwell in what is openly defiled. This is not about religion. This is not about law. This is not about old doctrines or empty traditions. This is about alignment. Divine anger is not a burst of rage. It is a shift in spiritual weather. It's the drought that follows when rain was once promised. It's the shadow that settles when light is dishonored. You were given a divine instruction, a sacred no. But you said yes anyway, and now everything feels wrong. Not because God hates you, but because He loves you so much, He refuses to let you feel at home in what will destroy you. That's the mercy inside the fire. That's the gift inside the anger. That's why the silence hurts, because it reminds you what you were made for. You were not created for lukewarm faith. You were not designed for toxic love. You were not called to build altars on the soil of compromise. But you did. And still, listen closely, you are not beyond redemption. Even now, while divine anger roars across the battlefield of your disobedience, a still, small whisper remains. It waits at the door of your surrender. Not the shallow kind, not the performance, not the apology you post and forget, but the real surrender. The kind that costs something. The kind that empties you out and makes room for heaven again. That's what this anger is leading to. Not destruction, transformation. But you must act now. Some of you are carrying burdens God never asked you to hold. People, projects, patterns, places. He told you to release them, but you didn't trust that life could be good without them. So you clung to the familiar pain instead of stepping into divine peace. And now you're paying the price in silence, anxiety, confusion, and fear. That is not your portion. But as long as you hold what was cursed, you will be separated from what was blessed. This is not a punishment. This is consequence. There is a difference. Punishment comes from wrath. Consequence comes from order, from design, from truth. And the truth is, what you allow to stay, stays with a cost. You already know this. That person who keeps draining your soul. You should have walked away. That habit that keeps choking your power, you should have broken it. That lie you keep telling yourself about tomorrow being the day you change. It's killing your future before it begins. The cost has never been higher, and the call has never been clearer. You will never be ordinary again. You cannot go back to the life of the blind. You cannot unsee what God has shown you. You cannot unknow the truth He placed in your chest. The visions, the dreams, the aching in your spirit. It is not madness. It is memory. You are remembering who you are. You are remembering what the fire feels like, but that memory will fade if you don't protect it. This is the moment to draw the line. The people who pull you into compromise, block them, walk away, cut ties. The habits that rob you of clarity and energy, kill them. Don't taper them off. Starve them. The places where your soul shrinks instead of expands, leave them. Don't explain. Don't defend. Do you understand how precious your calling is? Do you understand how rare your insight is? Do you understand how many generations before you cried out for the power that you were born into? And you're risking it for what? For acceptance? For temporary pleasure? for validation from those who are drowning in the same waters you were sent to walk on. No more. There is too much on the line now. You are not just protecting your own destiny. You are carrying the future of everyone connected to you. Your disobedience doesn't only cost you, it blocks doors for others. It slows divine timing. It creates generational echoes of confusion and loss. But your obedience, it unlocks miracles. It realigns timelines. It restores bloodlines. That's why this chapter matters. That's why this fire is here. It is not to destroy you, it is to purge you, but only if you respond. So do not wait for another sign. This is it. Do not ask for another confirmation. It's already been given. Do not wait for comfort before you leave what needs to be left. Comfort is not the companion of obedience. Courage is, and courage is being asked of you now, not later. Now, before you miss the window, before you forget what it feels like to be called, before the echo fades and you return to numbness, thinking that's normal. It's not. You are not numb, you are disconnected. But you can come back. You can realign. You can rise again. But not if you do it again. Not if you return. Not if you keep pretending that grace is permission and calling is convenience. You are chosen. You are seen. You are summoned. And God is waiting, not with open arms, but with fire in His eyes. This is not the time to play. This is not the season to delay. This is not the moment to drift. You either walk away now or lose what cannot be regained. The anger is real, but so is the mercy. If you move, there is a reason the world feels heavy to you right now. It's not because life is suddenly harder. It's because your spirit is awakening. And that awakening makes everything false feel suffocating. It's the tension between who you were and who you were always meant to be. It's the earthquake in your soul that begins the moment you realize you cannot go back. You've tasted the divine. You've heard the whisper behind the wind. You've seen the patterns. You've noticed the signs. And now, pretending you didn't hear it, didn't see it, didn't feel it, that pretending is what's tearing you apart inside. The divine anger you feel isn't just about your mistake. It's about the willful numbing of your intuition. It's about the moments you knew better and still chose worse. It's about you becoming your own captor when you had already been set free. Don't misunderstand. This isn't about guilt. Guilt is cheap. Anyone can feel bad. This is about the sacred weight of your choices. This is about the sacred cost of every yes you gave to something that wasn't worthy of you. This is about the betrayal of calling, not just of a God who chose you, but of your own soul that came here on fire. You feel the burn now. You feel the distance. You feel the ache. And for a while, you tried to call it something else. Exhaustion, anxiety, confusion. But deep down, you know, this is what it feels like when God steps back and says, "Do you still want it without me?" And the answer, if you're honest, is no, you don't. You don't want the blessings without alignment. You don't want the favor without obedience. You don't want the influence if it costs your integrity. But your actions must catch up with that truth. Because truth without action is still rebellion. You have cried, begged, fasted, worshipped. But you haven't left. You haven't ended it. You haven't burned it. You haven't closed the portal you opened when you said yes to what you knew was a spiritual trap. And until you do, the silence will continue. The dryness will remain. And the fire will only intensify. Not because God is cruel, but because He's serious. Serious about your mission. Serious about your transformation. Serious about the souls connected to your alignment. You are not just a person. You are a gate. When you disobey, that gate becomes a breach. When you obey, it becomes a passageway for power, clarity, healing. That's why the warfare is heavier for you. That's why the consequences hit deeper. That's why the silence from heaven feels louder. Because you're not just wandering off track, you're blocking a flood meant to wash through you and into others. This is divine accountability. And it's not comfortable, but it's necessary because the next chapter cannot carry the poison of this one. And God loves you enough to ruin your comfort until you release what's killing you. He will wreck your plans, shatter your peace, disturb your relationships, shake your foundations, just to bring you back to truth. He's doing it now. Look around. Look at what's collapsing. Look at what no longer works. Look at what drains you, betrays you, confuses you, tempts you. That's not coincidence. It's collapse. It's divine intervention. It's the tearing away of everything you were never meant to build upon. And yes, it hurts. But that's what surgery feels like. That's what healing costs. You asked for transformation. You asked for purpose. You asked for higher. Well, this is the road there. This is the road through the fire, not around it. Because the only way to burn the false is to let it burn. So stop holding on to it. Stop praying for the very thing God told you to walk away from. Stop asking for peace in places He already cursed. Stop begging for life in spaces where your spirit cannot breathe. That is not faith. That is disobedience dressed up in spiritual language. Faith is not asking God to bless your rebellion. Faith is walking away with no proof, only obedience. And you will not see the reward until you take that step. That's why this anger is mercy. It's the last warning. It's the final call. It's the line in the sand between who you could be and who you'll become if you don't change. This isn't just a bad decision anymore. It's becoming your identity. You're morphing into someone you were never meant to be. And that's why the fire is so hot right now. Because if you don't change now, it may be too late. Yes, God is gracious. Yes, He is forgiving. But don't mistake that for eternity of chances. There are doors that close for good. There are moments that don't come back. There are alignments that are lost forever. This is not to scare you. It's to wake you. You are standing on a cliff, and heaven is shouting, "Turn around." Because one more step, and you fall. And this fall isn't one you get up from. It's a spiritual death, a loss of calling, a corruption of your timeline, a mutation of your destiny. You'll still be alive, but hollow, present, but powerless, breathing, but broken. Don't do it again. Don't go back to the one who manipulated your light. Don't return to the addiction you dressed as a coping mechanism. Don't reach for the voice that pulled you into doubt, lust, confusion, or pride. Don't chase the illusion of love from someone God already removed from your life. Don't follow your feelings. They're tainted by what you tolerated too long. You need clarity. You need fire. You need discipline. You need to remember who you were before disobedience dulled your senses. You were sharp. You were sovereign. You were in tune. You were holy. And you still can be. But it will take a violent severing, a sacred refusal, a holy renunciation of what was. You must declare it out loud, cut it off, and never touch it again. Even if it cries, even if it begs, even if it looks beautiful now, even if it hurts, because the pain of letting go is temporary, but the cost of keeping it could be eternal. So no, this is not about shame. This is about responsibility. This is about your vow, your covenant, your mantle. You are chosen. And that means something. It means you don't get to do what everyone else does. It means you don't get to entertain every relationship. It means you don't get to flirt with every desire. It means you don't get to blend in. Your very existence is disruptive to the world system. And when you lower your standard to fit into a place God called you to transform, you become part of the problem. No more, you are not called to blend, you are called to burn. So burn the bridges, burn the idols, burn the stories you told yourself about why this had to happen the way it did. It didn't. You chose it, but you can choose again. And this time, you choose obedience, no matter what it costs, because nothing is worth losing the presence, nothing is worth forfeiting the power, nothing is worth missing the calling. There comes a point when heaven stops whispering and starts roaring. This is that point, not because God stopped loving you, but because you stopped listening. He has been gentle. He has been patient. He has warned you in dreams. He has sent people. He has allowed disruptions. He has placed delays to protect you. But you called those delays attacks. You blamed the enemy, but it wasn't him. It was your Father, holding the flood back so you wouldn't drown. And now the dam is cracking, not to destroy you, but to force you to choose. This is what divine anger really is. It is the sound of destiny demanding your attention. It is the groaning of a promise too long denied. It is the shaking of every false structure you built to hide from the assignment you fear. And if you don't move, if you don't repent with action, you will be buried in the rubble of what was once your pride. You can feel it. Your body is rejecting what your soul used to tolerate. Your mind is exhausted by cycles it once called normal. Your heart is cracking under the pressure of pretending you're fine. This is the purging. This is the tearing. This is the spiritual unraveling of every agreement you made with darkness, knowingly or unknowingly, just to feel accepted, validated, or loved. God is not impressed with your performance. He wants your heart, and your heart cannot be divided anymore. You've tried. You tried to serve while seducing. You tried to praise while manipulating. You tried to lead while hiding secret patterns. You tried to pray while ignoring the voice you knew was telling you, "Stop, now." But you didn't. You kept going. You called it ambition. You called it strategy. You called it love. But deep down, you knew it was disobedience dressed in excuses. And now the covering is gone. The fake blessings are breaking. The counterfeit comfort is evaporating. Because the fire of God does not bless rebellion. It burns it. This is the mercy inside the wrath, to break before you are broken beyond repair. Do you hear that? This is your final warning. The place you're standing on is not stable. The relationship you're clinging to is not love. It's a leash. The money you're chasing is not provision. It's a trap. The image you're protecting is not honor. It's a mask. And the identity you're fighting for is not you. It's the ghost of who you had to become just to survive. But you're not meant to survive anymore. You're meant to live fully, wildly, purely, authentically, divinely. But to live like that, you must die first. Not physically, spiritually. You must die to the version of you that lied to be liked, that bent for approval, that shrank in the face of fear, that played safe because the unknown was too terrifying, that made peace with bondage just to avoid the loneliness of obedience. God is done negotiating with your old self. That self must go, because that self can't carry the glory that's coming. That self will collapse under the weight of the promise. That self will destroy the people you were called to lift. That self will infect the sacred ground you're meant to walk on. That self will curse the future your ancestors prayed for. And God is too faithful to let that happen. So the breaking continues. Let it. Let the fire do its work. Let the sword cut. Let the tears fall. Let the illusion end. Let the silence deepen until you finally scream, "Enough." Not out of pain, out of surrender. That's the moment heaven rushes in, but not before, because your tears alone won't change this. Your apologies alone won't move this. The only thing that will shift the divine anger is repentance that builds new patterns, obedience that leaves no room for compromise, holiness that costs you something. Your yes must be expensive, or it means nothing. Cheap faith has infected your timeline long enough. Surface-level commitments, half-hearted prayers, performance-based worship. God doesn't want your stage. He wants your shadow. He wants the part of you that no one else sees. The ugly part, the doubting part, the sinful part, the addicted part, the broken part. He wants that you, because that's the real you, and only the real can be redeemed. So stop hiding, stop pretending, stop managing the perception of holiness while your soul is sinking. Heaven is not fooled, and you're not free, and freedom is why God is angry. Yes, angry. Angry because you are still caged when the key has already been given. Angry because you are still wounded by choices you had the power to stop. Angry because you are still crying over a storm you refuse to leave. This is not judgment. This is justice. And justice demands alignment. You cannot serve both kingdoms anymore. You cannot sit at both tables. You cannot speak light while living in shadows. You cannot carry the sacred while flirting with sin. And you cannot ask for God's power if you're not willing to carry His standard. This is the reckoning, and reckoning is never easy, but it is glorious, because what comes after the fire is gold, but only if you don't quit, only if you don't return, only if you don't try to rebuild what God Himself tore down. So many are tempted now to go back to Egypt, back to the comfort, back to the crowd, back to the addiction, back to the fantasy. But what's back there? Chains, death, regression, noise. You escaped for a reason. Don't glamorize the wilderness you were once desperate to leave. You're almost out. The breaking is almost done. But you must not lose your footing now. Not when everything is about to shift. Not when the real acceleration is about to begin. Not when your name is echoing in rooms you haven't even entered yet. Don't lose everything over this. Whatever this is, it's not worth it. The lie, the lover, the comfort, the clout, the pattern. It is not worth your legacy. It is not worth your fire. It is not worth your name. You were called to rise, and God is not playing games with this rising. He will use storms. He will use loss. He will use delays. He will use isolation. He will even use pain, because all of it is part of the design to bring you back to the raw, real, burning version of you that cannot be bought, broken, or buried. That you is rising again, but not if you do it again. The door is open. The choice is yours. There are moments in life that define you forever, not because they are loud, but because they are final. Moments where you don't just hear truth, but you feel it rip through your soul. This is that moment, right now, and what you do with it will either mark the beginning of your greatest awakening or your most haunting silence. Heaven has stopped speaking softly. The time for hints is over. The time for delays is done. The time for one last time has expired. What stands before you now is not an invitation, it's a command. And the choice to obey is not just about your future, it's about your survival. You think you have time, but time is no longer yours. You think grace will always cover you, but grace is not a license. It's an opportunity. One that, when ignored long enough, begins to turn cold. You've tasted the presence. You've been called by name. You've seen the signs, felt the power, carried the knowing in your spirit even when you tried to pretend you didn't. And now, every part of you knows you can't run anymore. You are out of places to hide. And God is no longer asking. He's drawing the line. And his voice is not soft now. It is the sound of thunder in your bones. It's the earthquake that breaks everything you built outside of him. It's the fire that refuses to let you die in the arms of a lie. It's the righteous rage of heaven screaming through your silence, "Do not do it again," because this time it will cost too much. You don't even know how close you are to collapse, how thin the veil is, how fragile the protection has become around your life. The hands that held you back from disaster are beginning to pull away. Not because God is cruel, but because he will not bless your betrayal. Not of him, not of your calling, not of your soul. If you take one more step toward that false comfort, you may never come back. Yes, you'll still be breathing, but inside, you'll be gone. Gone like those who used to burn bright, but now walk in shadows. Gone like those who once prophesied with power, but now speak only noise. Gone like those who once had oil on their names, but now chase applause and attention. Dried out and empty. Gone like the kings who touched what was holy in arrogance and fell, never to rise again. You are not above falling. None of us are, but the difference between a fall and a fracture that never heals is repentance that costs everything. And that's what is required now. You can't just apologize, you must abandon. You can't just weep, you must walk away. You can't just feel conviction, you must cut ties. This is not about emotional release. This is about spiritual realignment. It's about burning every escape route and declaring, "I will not go back. I will not do it again. I don't care what it costs." Because here's the truth. If it doesn't cost you something, it's not repentance. If it doesn't change your habits, it's not transformation. If it doesn't scare your flesh, it's not obedience. And if it doesn't silence the voices that used to celebrate your compromise, it's not alignment with heaven. You want to be chosen? Good. But chosen comes with chains broken, not managed. You want to be anointed? Good. But anointed comes with sacrifice. You want to carry the fire? Good. But fire consumes everything. You cannot bring the ashes of your rebellion into the courts of God and expect favor to fall. He will not pour fresh oil over a polluted altar. He will not breathe into lungs filled with the smoke of your secret sin. Clean it out, clear it away, tear it down, and don't wait for a feeling to do it. Feelings are liars. Obedience is truth. And you already know what must go. That voice? Cut it off. That relationship? End it. That habit? Kill it. That place? Leave it. That mindset? Burn it. Do it without delay. Do it without needing closure. Do it without needing applause. Do it because God said to. That's all the reason you need. And the moment you move in radical obedience, the silence will break, the weight will lift, the fire will shift from judgment to glory, and the presence will flood in again. But not before. God is not moved by partial obedience. He is not flattered by emotional outbursts. He is not tricked by shallow prayers. He is looking for blood on the altar. He is listening for the sound of real surrender. He is waiting to see if your yes is still true when it hurts. And here's the mystery. The moment you give him everything, you get everything. Peace that makes no sense. Clarity that exposes every lie. Fire that burns in your bones. Power that crushes the enemy's grip. Joy that cannot be stolen. Vision so sharp it scares the room. Favor that finds you when you're not even trying. But you don't get any of it until you make the exchange, your life for His. That's what this is about. Not behavior, not performance, not sin management. It's about ownership. Who owns you? Because if you still belong to your feelings, your fears, your patterns, your past, you are not yet free. But if you give yourself fully to God, even the broken parts, even the scared parts, even the ashamed parts, then you become unstoppable. You become a living altar, a moving temple, a vessel of the Most High. But not if you do it again. Not if you ignore this warning. Not if you pretend this fire isn't for you. It is. This is the final clearing, the last chance to exit before the road collapses, the final invitation before divine silence becomes your teacher. And you don't want that, because when God stops speaking, nothing can grow, nothing can move, nothing can live. You don't want to be gifted, but ghosted by heaven. You don't want to be admired by the crowd, but abandoned by the Spirit. You don't want to be crowned by man, but cursed by your own choices. So let this moment burn you. Let it cut deep. Let it sting. Because what comes after the wound is a new beginning. There is a silence that comes after fire. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of awe. The kind of silence that lives only after truth has shattered every illusion and exposed the raw, unedited version of you. That's where we are now. The fire has spoken, the judgment has echoed, and the storm has passed. But the air is not calm. It is holy. You stand now at the edge of yourself, not the version the world sees, not the image you crafted to survive, but the true self, bare, burning, waiting to see if you really heard what was spoken, waiting to see if you'll actually move different. Because the danger has never been in failing. It has always been in forgetting the warnings, forgetting the pain, forgetting the moment God made it clear that continuing in the same way would end in death. You can't forget, because now you know, now you've seen, now you've felt the gravity of divine anger, not as hate, but as holy urgency, the rage of a father who refuses to let his children dance on the edge of destruction without intervention. God's anger was not your ending, it was your alarm. But what you do after the alarm determines everything. You must not rebuild what He broke. You must not return to what He released you from. You must not justify what He called out. You must not rename what He already condemned. Because if you go back now, it won't be ignorance. It will be rebellion. And rebellion now won't be tolerated. Not because God has changed, but because you have crossed into deeper responsibility. You've been exposed to too much. You've seen behind the veil. You've stood in the fire and heard the thunder of warning. That level of exposure demands a new level of integrity. And if you pretend you didn't hear it, that's where the real fall begins. God is watching now, not from a distance, but from the inner courts of your heart. Every move, every motive, every whisper you agree with, every compromise you rationalize, every just this one time you justify. He's not watching to punish. He's watching to see if He can trust you. Because this is where many fail. Not in the battle, but in the aftermath. They weep during the storm, but build idols once the sun returns. They cry in the breaking, but resurrect the same dysfunction once they feel safe. Don't be them. Don't be the one who made promises in the fire, but forgot them in the calm. Don't be the one who wept in conviction, but laughed in compromise. Don't be the one who said, "Never again," and then did it again. Because the second time isn't just a fall, it's a betrayal. And betrayal doesn't just cost you, it shakes everything you were assigned to cover. There are people connected to your obedience. There are regions tied to your yes. There are doors that only open when your soul is clean. There are mantles that only fall when your posture is right. And if you bow again to the thing God commanded you to destroy, you forfeit what could have been born through your life.